I'm going to introduce a key concept in high availability, which is zero downtime deployments. So the problem statement really is that if you've got a system that needs to be highly available, you need to make sure that's available even when you're upgrading it to a new version. So just as a really simple thing, let's say you've got an API. You've got the old one, version 1, and you've got a new one that you're going to bring live, which is version 2. They've got a number of strategies here, but given the fact that that might be exposed at an IP address, that you can use deployment slots in Azure App Service, or you can use blue-green deployments. In other words, you bring the other one up, you flip over, you process the traffic on the new one, and then only when you're happy with it, you get rid of the old one. You can also have canary deployments where you bring the new system up, you put a percentage of your traffic to that, while the other one, you might put 10% of your traffic through the new one, 90% through the old one, until you're happy, and then you can migrate the workloads onto that. And then finally, you can take the old one down. So we've got some strategies for that. Now, if your API is stateless, in other words, every interaction end to end just happens and then it's done, then it's quite easy relatively. You've just got methods of switching over. You want to make sure your new one is pre-warmed. In other words, it's ready to take that load, but then you can switch over to it. And really, these are just different ways of switching over. And then you've got an easy way to fail back, because if that's not quite right, you just switch it back to the old one. Now, when things are stateful, and again, because it's 345 technology, as our focus on integration, a lot of the time you might be calling an API, but that might have a long-running process that has a lot of state. It has to remember where it is. This makes the whole thing a lot more difficult, because if you're switching over, can you only switch over when all the version 1s are finished and then you can only start version 2s? Or do you start version 2, meanwhile all the version 1s are still working in parallel? And then how do you know which one is which? There's a whole load of issues there. We've got strategies to unpack that, but these are just sort of the problems you encounter. If you've got long running stuff, is it as easy to fail back? Can you go back to the old process? Have you already made changes in the way your data's structured? And one of the key things to look at here is, we used to talk a lot about orchestration, where you'd have a process that's doing loads of things. Now we try to talk about choreography, which is where a long-running process, you break it down into a number of really quick steps that actually together make that process, so that you can replace and upgrade each step, but without having to affect the whole in quite the same way. So a lot more things to think about on zero downtime deployments when you've got state and long-running processes rather than stateless, fast processes. We've got strategies for that. So if this is what's worrying you, come and talk to us.